I was saying in Ontario, you're saying good morning and welcome. I'm saying in Ontario, it's a bit of a dismal day here, but I've got a fire burning saying goodbye to the winter, tulips welcoming spring. And most important, no matter where we are in Canada or in the US, the sun is shining on us with the energy and enthusiasm and the hearts of all of our Mary Kay people. So welcome everyone. And I want to start off just by thanking Wynn for being my partner in this and doing all the technicals. So yay, Wynn. And congratulate our consultants who are placed their $600 order based on their sales in the month of February. And, you know, when we started this back in July, it was really kind of a program just to recognize and honor. And for me, when I was first introduced to Mary Kay some 40 something years ago, I watched a segment on 60 Minutes and was absolutely intrigued. But it was because of Mary Kay's philosophy of God first, family second, career third. But I also was intrigued by these women. They were so darn happy and had something oozing about them that I just couldn't quite get. Then fast forward when I went to my very first seminar and Mary Kay spoke, it was changed my life forever. But it was also when I heard the top directors and the national sales directors. We only had American national sales directors there, and they shared their stories. It literally opened my heart to the possibilities of Mary Kay. And I think it was John Maxwell that said that the best way to learn is not through teaching, but it's through stories. And I think more than it, that may be true for, certainly it's most true for women, because don't you think unless we open our hearts to the possibilities and to the values and things like that. So part of this purpose is this thing is to share some of the legacy of in Mary Kay and their stories and have them share their words of wisdom. So I also want to thank our directors who are on this group for supporting your consultants, and a shout out to Bernice Bowmalin and to Sandy Campbell, our amazing NSDs. And as I shared, this is March break in Canada, Dawn, so a lot of people are away. But the amazing thing is the response that we get after this when it's recorded, the feedback from consultants and directors. And I know you're recording it today. So I am really excited to introduce our amazing, amazing guest speaker. And I was thinking this morning when I first met Dawn, and there's a thing that coincidences are God's way of being silent. And it was at a career conference, and there was a luncheon. And Dawn, I think you were sitting by yourself. And I looked over and saw this beautiful national sales director and just went over and sat with her and wanted to know who she was. And it just developed an amazing, I would say, God hand-on friendship. And this is, I think, actually the only second time I've seen you in like 6 years.
Right. Yeah.
6 or 7 years in that. So with accolades, I always say that what I found out is I didn't care how many cars people had earned or how many diamond rings they'd earned. And I also didn't matter to me how much money they had earned, because I quickly learned that the higher up the rankings and the more confident a woman appeared was that the higher income was. What always intrigued me was who they were and their stories. And Dawn, from the moment I met you and got to know you, truly represent the best of Mary Kay. You live your life based on Mary Kay's values of God first, family second, career third. You are, what we can catch from you is where you've been. I also know you're going to share your heart today, but you're one of the most incredible trainers out there. And not just an amazing trainer, but an incredible go-give heart that you have things on YouTube. You have a director's Bible training course, and you just open it up and welcome everyone in. So you have the heart, the soul, and everything that when I learned the stories and the values of the women that I wanted to be, you are. So I know that you're going to bless us today, and thank you. And in that, John, I always start off by just asking for if you would share your eye story and where you came from. And Mary Kay said that we all have, as women, we all have two legs and we put pantyhose on the same way. And I think that we don't realize where we all come from when we start. So we'd love to hear your story, Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me, Janice, and congratulations. Like Janice said, congratulations to all of you who qualified to be on this with your 600 wholesale. I know in the States, we have a program that you get a piece of jewelry every month for doing that. But when I started Mary Kay, you didn't get anything monthly. It was set up to be a star consultant quarterly. And so, something that has been very magnified during this time period of the pandemic is managing what you focus on. And so, during this time period, people can focus on loss or what we can't do or what we don't have. And that could happen from country to country. I see it in the United States clearly as the Mary Kay National Area grows, because we're in a 10-year time period in the United States that 85% of the national sales directors retire. That's huge. So right now, there's 80% of Mary Kay United States that does not have an affiliated national sales director. And so that I see Mary Kay National Area focusing on that as a loss. But how I look at it is that when I came into Mary Kay 35 years ago, Daily White was my national, and phones were attached to walls with cords on them. And you thought you were super high tech when you got the long cord from Radio Shack so you could talk in the other room. That was high tech. And you didn't call people until after 9 o'clock at night if they were outside your area code, because it was just way too expensive. You didn't do that. If you had roommates, in fact, you kept track of it for your phone bill. And so I was not on speed dial to Daylene White. I could not Voxer her. I could not see her YouTube. She didn't have a Facebook or a Facebook fan page. I couldn't Voxer her. Like, I saw her at seminar and at leadership conference, and then a couple times she came to my home because I was working my Mary Kay business at the level that I qualified for that. And so something that I don't want to lose is that willingness to work to qualify to be with the coaches you want to be with. That's why I qualified for a trip my third year as a director, because I did not want Debbie Moore and Kathy Halou to go on any more trips without me, because you didn't have Facebook. So now some people feel like they don't even need to qualify for a trip because nationals or top directors are videotaping, Facebook Living every single second of every single thing they do. And so people think they're actually there, and you're not. You're not. And so I had to wait until they got back from the trip, till our fall retreat, and until I saw a slideshow of their trip, and I did not want to miss it. And, I think of like how beautifully this whole thing is designed. And the longer I'm in Mary Kay, the more I wish that I could sit down with Mary Kay Ash and ask her, what did your walk with the Lord look like? Because it had to be tight. Like, she was listening and being obedient on a high level, because there's no way a human being could come up with a marketing plan in a company that could start with 9 women in Dallas, Texas, and now be impacting women's lives. When you impact a woman's life, you impact children, you impact generations and generations and generations all over the world. And not to mention that myself included came to know the Lord through Mary Kay relationships, not through going to church for 30 years, all the vacation Bible schools, confirmation in 2 different denominations. No, it was through Mary Kay relationships that God drew me to him. And so, and explained to me the difference between a relationship and religion. And so, congratulations for running through this finish line. Finish lines matter. And don't ever apologize for being competitive. Just compete with yourself. Because if God has placed a goal for you right now, like the end of the June quarter, if it's the end of March, if it's to be a sales director, earn a car, whatever the case may be, I encourage you to go for it. Because I would not be in Mary Kay if Debbie Moore had not been out with a new consultant in Cleveland, Ohio, teaching her how to talk to people that she didn't know. Because Nancy Murata's family was not supportive of her starting her Mary Kay business. Nancy did not need money. Her husband's dad is Mr. Coffee. And so there was no income needed. She needed it for herself. There's always something that bothers me so much when women say, oh, well, she doesn't need money, or, that's why I'm not, building my business and washing faces versus feet because I don't need money. You guys, that's so selfish. It makes me so sick. Like, if you have enough money, then currency, it's supposed to flow. Currency flows. It's not supposed to be stuck inside of you and your family and maybe your next generation. I mean, there's lots of need all over the place. And so Debbie Moore was out warm booking in a mall in Cleveland. I had moved there 9 months earlier. I was raised in Metro Detroit. In fact, Canada is like a neighbor, like that was a suburb. I can get to Windsor faster from Dearborn, where I grew up, or Canton, where I live now, than I can most suburbs of Detroit. In fact, my mom's mom was Canadian always. She married an American, but she was raised in Sarnia. And so when I met Janice, that was in a time period that God was real clear, like, go to Canada. And I'm like, really? Like, there's enough business right here, Lord. Getting over to Canada now, I can't even imagine. But then, I mean, they will be searching my Escalade, pulling things apart every single time. The whole interrogation, why are you here? What are you doing? And it's like, you couldn't say training. There was words you could say and couldn't say. And I'm like, seriously? My husband was a Border Patrol agent, immigration officer for 10 years. I'm real clear. I'm not the biggest threat to our country or yours. Very clear. So it was just such a hassle. But I'm like, okay, Lord, I'll do it. And looking back now, he needed me to have a recent reminder during the pandemic that you're a pioneer. Mary Kay Ash was a pioneer. When I was approached in that mall to be a face model for someone's Mary Kay portfolio, I love that approach. I mean, you can do that virtually or in person, still build a Mary Kay portfolio before and after pictures. I love that because Mary Kay always taught us, everyone has a sign around their neck, what's in it for me, but also make me feel important. And so even if I would have said no to that, I still would have walked away from that interaction going, I was complimented. They made me feel good. They recognized something in me because I had just worked 80 hours that past week. I had been recruited out of the University of Michigan Business School in this, job that I just thought I was going to be making, more money than I know what to do with. Little did I know that, I was going to have visa bills here and paycheck there. So I was already behind the 8 ball as an early 20-year-old. And I remember sitting in the mall doing this competitive shopping report because I was in retail management going, this is it, Lord? Like, really, this is it. Every month, I mean, I'm getting up, going to work, coming home, watching TV, eating dinner, going to bed. Getting up, going to work, coming home, watching TV, eating dinner, going to bed. Getting up, go to work. You know what I'm going to say for Thursday, Friday, live for Saturday. And then on Sunday, kind of get depressed because I knew what I was looking forward to for the whole week. And I'm not a person that spent much time, thank you, Jesus, being depressed. Like, I'm the eternal optimist, almost to a deficit at times. And I was thinking, this is it. Like, I'm going to do this for my 4 to 8 week vacation a year. And I'm looking at the women I was being groomed for, and they looked haggard. They're chain smoking in offices without windows, sacrificing their health, their marriage, raising their kids for this paycheck. And I'm like, I don't know. I saw my dad be very successful in business, and I saw my mom be a stay-at-home mom. And looking back, I wanted both. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. And so when I saw Debbie Moore, and if those of you who don't know her, I mean, she's like, always looks great. I mean, just this professional, just perfect all the time, and as beautiful inside as out. But I remember asking Nancy when she asked me to be a face model, what does she do? I want to know what she does, because that's what I thought being successful in corporate America was going to look like. In it, they don't pay me enough to look like that. She had a peace, a joy. There was something there that I was missing. And so she said, well, you know what? She was an elementary art teacher. She has left that. She's at home now. She has one child. She makes a 6-figure income, drives a pink Cadillac. Honestly, after she said 6-figure income, as long as everything after that was legal, I'm like, I'm in. I need to hear more about that. Because I knew in America, I was going to have to go back and get my master's. And I didn't want to go back. I mean, now I think it's ironic because I look for women who are lifelong learners, but in school, I just learned to take a test. I didn't learn to be transformed, to make myself better, to help other people. I've learned that in Mary Kay, that this is an ongoing process. But I asked what Debbie Moore did. And when she said that, I'm like, I was intrigued. I want to hear more. She came over to my apartment. Me and my roommate had a facial. I fell in love with skincare. I was not a makeup girl, real shy. I'm still introverted, but I've learned now that God made me to be an introvert. That just means that, like, when I go to career conference next week, I will, prior to and after, spend time a lot by myself in the Lord to fill back up. But my shy was because I was worried about what other people would think. It was people approval, and God has worked that out of me the hard way in Mary Kay. I have found that this business, if you allow it to be, is a potter's wheel, that God can do some work in you that you would pay thousands and thousands of dollars in self-help programs, counselors, psychiatrists, or maybe just numb yourself out because you never feel like you can reach that elusive self-confidence or self-esteem. Janice was mentioning some of the resources on, I love it now because I have a fan page, a Facebook fan page. So I have no friends. Don't get offended if I don't, accept your friend request. I have 0 friends. God knew, I'm too ADD. I use my Facebook fan page like an Instagram, a Twitter, a recognition piece. This is what I'm thinking about. This is what God's showing me. A few weeks ago, you can look, I made a post and I just wanted to share with people because it's bothered me. And I found that when things bother me, like there's just that check, like take some time to pray about it. Like, God, what do you want me to know about this? And I start to ask, like, what do you want me to know about this when people say that they are more than enough? Like, that's their key to success. I'm more than enough. And what I have found that has bothered me about that is that I had to get to the point where God made it really clear that I was not enough. Because I believe that most of the women who are on the screen, you've learned how to operate in this world pretty successfully. You're the winners, like of all the consultants out there, you're the ones who are excelling. You're sharing this product, you're servicing your customers, you're sharing this opportunity. And even though you may want to do more, you feel like you need to do more, still, like, you're the exception versus the rule. So, you are not the tree sloths that are just out there drifting through life and trying to get away with as little as you possibly can. That is not you. That is not who Mary Kay draws. Those are not the women who are on this, leadership call. But what bothered me about that is that I came into this thinking that I was more than enough. I was a really good student. I have a semi-photographic memory, so I test really well. Doesn't mean I learned a lot, but got into a good school, did well, got a great job. But still, like, there was this hole, like there's something missing here. So God had to bring me to a point. I, did well as a consultant, earned my car, became a director, got my Cadillac in 6 months, did 450, 500 trips. I was pregnant with my daughter, 6 months pregnant with her, my first trip with Mary Kay. She was there in London. I remember walking arm in arm with Mary Kay to Windsor Castle, and she had on her little tennis shoes, and she was one of the most impacting people in my whole life. And even if you never get to meet her, she's still that impacting to you. I encourage you to ask yourself, why am I in Mary Kay Cosmetics right now? Like, in your country and in this world and in this company, because we're at a baton passing time in your country, in my country, around the world, in our opportunity. Because we are one generation away from there being no one in a room that actually met Mary Kay Ash. I went to her home for new director training. When I left her home, she gave me a dollar bill that says Matthew 25, 14 through 30. Look up that address. It took me 10 years of my business to look up that address in the Bible. Matthew, now with cell phones, you can just Google search Matthew 25, 14 through 30. Look it up in some different translations. Look it up in the Message translation. It took me 10 years to look it up because when I started, I had never seen people in my immediate family, my mom, my dad, read a Bible. My husband's family, Absolutely not. Never apply that to their work life. They're raising their kids, their finances, maybe their Sunday. They were good Sunday people, but it didn't overflow into other arenas of their life. So when Mary Kay gave it to me, I kept it, which is unusual because I haven't been a keeper of a lot of stuff in my career. And so I looked it up, and it was at a critical time because I knew that God had called me to be $1 million director, but I had rationalized away in my mind. I was a trip director. You know, things can look good from the outside. And for some of you, you're the top in your unit. And so it looks good on the outside, but you maybe know that you have not thrown your heart across the line 150%. Like only you and God may know that. And that's the most important person because Mary Kay in her autobiography, you know, she wants us to hear good and faithful servant. And that's going to be a really awkward conversation with Jesus. Oh, and about that, the Chosen TV show, if you guys haven't started watching it, you can download that app on your phone. You can watch it from anywhere. It's a worldwide phenomenon, but if I'm going to binge watch something, I'm going to binge watch The Chosen. And it has taught me so much about who Jesus really was. Like, what did he look like? So whether you follow Jesus or not, it's very inspirational. It's way better than 99% of the crap that's on TV or the news. I don't know, maybe Canada's different, but in the US, I'm like, I don't need to see this. I don't need to hear this. That is horrible. So I had to get to the point that I was going to teach a class on using your gifts and talents. I pull out that dollar bill, I start to read it, and and maybe it'll be this call that does that. Like, what has God called you to? Like, are you and Mary Kay to be a director that builds their business the Mary Kay way? Are you supposed to be a national and build it? Are you supposed to be a consultant that is a key baton passer? In Mary Kay's last chapter of her autobiography, she shares there's 3 things that she feels are necessary for this company to go on after she's gone. 1, to do your business according to the golden rule, treating other people how you want to be treated yourself. 2, everyone has a seed of greatness in them, and she believed it was our job to encourage it out. And isn't it fun that, we encourage it out with, guest speakers like this, or quarterly prizes, or cars, or year-end awards. I love that part, but that's the encouragement for you to, in the natural, those are going to be trophies, Mary Kay always told us, that represent how many lives you have impacted. And so, what are you going to say to Jesus? Like, oh, well, we had COVID, these 2 years, and, I was unwilling to figure out how to connect to people on Zoom, or I'm not a digital diva. Like, that's going to be a really awkward conversation. Like, he doesn't know what's been going on the last couple years in our country, in our world, in your country. Like, he's on his throne. He is still in control. We know the end of this story. Did any of us predict this? I don't know. There's probably some people that may. 2 years ago at this time, when Mary Kay Inc. called to say they were canceling career conference in 40 locations around the United States of America, and this career conference next weekend will be the first live event I've gone to with Mary Kay in 24 months, I would have said, yeah, no, that's a sci-fi movie. That's not true. Like, that's not going to happen. You guys, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. If any of us have been educated on, like, thank goodness he is in control. And we saw that with how our company was protected. You guys, think about that. Think about that. That the U.S., Mary Kay's family had invested $158 million into a research and development plan. And because of that, the government could call us and ask us to come up with a hand sanitizer. We didn't do hand sanitizers. That's Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever, Bed Bath and something. That we didn't do hand sanitizers, but we could because that was already in the works. That plant was already up and running. Scientists were right there. In a week, we have a formula, and we give away $10 million of hand sanitizers to women's shelters and to frontline workers that allows us to be considered an essential business to stay open. That's God. When Mary Kay said those 3 things, God first, family second, career third needs to be protected. The golden rule protected, and encouraging that seed of greatness out of every single woman that comes in this business. She was serious. She wanted you to hear good and faithful servant. She did not want you to stand before Jesus and say, yeah, my husband wasn't very supportive, or I have these kids, or you know what, I haven't felt real good. I have this health issue going on. And I live in this, place, et cetera, et cetera. Like, really, he's going to go, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. She's in that country. That's right. This has been going on in the world. Yeah. I know her husband, and yep, those kids are a handful. Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah, what I called her to do can't happen.
So, John,
Yeah.
may I just share? It's interesting listening to you because your journey is very much the same as mine. I always share when I joined Mary Kay. Mary Kay talked about God first, family second, career third, and taking God as a business partner. It actually made me feel really uncomfortable. And even though that was my faith, I always share that I was raised Presbyterian. And unlike Mary Kay being a Southern Baptist, raised Presbyterian, I like to say we're kind of closet Christians. We didn't really talk about God, but it has been such an incredible part of my journey. And one of the things that hit home for me that you shared when you talked about Debbie and earning a six-figure income, before you already embraced Debbie because you shared she had this peace and this joy. So it was who she was and the energy that came out that opened your heart to, wow, you can be that way and still make that incredible amount of money. And that's where it comes down to, I think, in Mary Kay, is knowing who we are. And the other thing I thought about when you shared is that we're not enough. That is so great. But I think the message really is, and I've learned this in Mary Kay, is that what's inside of us is enough, but life has kind of covered it up in layers. And I think about my daughter, Katie, when she was really young, this baby, and she'd be frustrated. And I think, what is going on? And I'd give her Tylenol, or I'd do this and nothing. And I think, what is going on? And then she'd sit up, or she'd crawl, or she'd do something. And I realized, it's like I had this epiphany that we were born to grow, to use our gifts and to keep on growing. And a lot of times as women, we quit growing when we get married because we give a piece of ourselves away. We quit growing when we become moms. We quit. My sister's ER doctor in California, and she's been an ER doctor as long as I've been in Mary Kay, and yet she has not grown any which way with her career. So I think that when we think that we're enough, we all have that 2-year-old in us. That 2-year-old that people could say no and nothing fazed them, the one that learned to crawl. And I think, to me, going back to what Mary Kay said on 60 Minutes, was that she hoped that God would use her as a vehicle to help women develop their God-given abilities. And that's this journey. And I love what you said about challenging us to keep on growing, to become more, to be able to give more. And give more financially, give more peace, give more joy. I mean, it's just, and that's the vehicle and those challenges that we have in Mary Kay. And there will be challenges, right? Because God puts it in your heart and the enemy comes in and goes, So a couple of things. One, do you, John, have a favorite Mary Kay memory with Mary Kay, the person?
Definitely that walk to Windsor Castle. I remember thanking her profusely. If you had the opportunity to talk to Mary Kay, I was just like a blubbering mess because the business had changed my life. And at that point, I was not an in the word born again believer. I believed in God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. But again, I grew up Lutheran, Presbyterian. So it was more like you keep that personal. You don't combine it. So I wasn't even saying anything like that, my eternity and my husband's and kids is different because of this. It was just the opportunity to be able to work around, babies 24 months apart and C-sections, and my son's open heart surgery at 3 months when my husband was a federal agent and had that great insurance that I call golden handcuffs. And we had to put him on an air ambulance and fly him across the country to have 1 open heart surgeries versus 2. And I did that because I had the confidence. I didn't have the $20,000 extra dollars for the air ambulance in my savings account, but I had the confidence that, in any economy, women are going to wash their face. Alcohol, tobacco, and cosmetics. are recession proof. And I was willing to work 24/7 the rest of my life so that my son could have one open heart surgery versus two at 3 months of age. And so I'm thanking her for these things. And she just listened and nodded. And with her steely blue eyes, she always paid attention to you. No matter what, I mean, there could be a parade going on, and sometimes at seminar there was, and she was paying attention just to you. And you guys, that's a really important skill because we're very distracted. We live in the age of distraction. You know, people are looking at their phones. They have 5 million different things going on because technology allows that. Like, I had to work really hard to learn how to do that. But she just looked at me and said, pass it on, pass it on. I mean, after listening to me just blah all over her, 3 simple words, pass it on. And that's significant because you all are sharing the product unless you're using 600 wholesale a month yourself, which I definitely can and do. When people say 225 a quarter is personal use, it's like, what, for like part of your cheek? I mean, one hand, like, what are we talking about here? It's not this, that's for sure. But that pass it on, you know, that's passing on the opportunity. Mary Kay said everyone deserved the opportunity to hear about the business and the product. Let them make the decision. And I just had a conversation as I was getting my nails done yesterday, and she's like, why can't I share the opportunity with people? She was a consultant with me way back, just restarted. And I'm like, because you're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about yourself. When people tell me they don't want to be pushy, that's why they're not sharing the product and opportunity, you're being very pushy. Because when you make a decision for someone else, you've pushed your opinion or your insecurities or your beliefs on that woman. You've decided for her. Mary Kay said, pass it on. And she knew we were passing on the product, but she wanted to make sure we were passing on the opportunity. Going to her home, definitely, she sat there on her couch with her little fur person. She had her cookies. You know, she was into potlucks. I love the Pass It On book by Jennifer Cook, because she was Mary Kay's assistant for so long, it fills in a lot of gaps in Mary Kay's autobiography to help you get a better picture of who Mary Kay was. I've learned so much from that about who Mary Kay was, and that's important. Because when you're out there, you're representing her company, her brand, her mission, her family's company. You know, people got a little confused when social media came on and they started to make themselves into celebrities and attract attention to themselves. You know, in any other company, you'd get fired for that. If I was hired by IBM to sell computers and I'm building a base of people that are looking to me versus IBM, they'd say, that's a no-go, you're fired. You're hired in Mary Kay to represent Mary Kay's mission, her product, her opportunity. And to me, when I was shy, that gave me confidence. This wasn't what Dawn's done with the business so far. This isn't my insecurities, what I can or can't do with it. I'm representing the 5th largest global beauty brand in the world, and I'm representing Mary Kay's mission. So that gave me confidence. Like when people say, I'm going to fake it till I make it, again, that was something that bothered me, and I don't know what they mean by it, but I hope they mean, like I did, I had to pretend that I was out of the equation. This was not about me. In fact, Debbie Moore told me I would get so anxious getting ready to speak at events, like I could feel like I could like hyperventilate and have an anxiety attack. I remember Debbie Moore saying, this is not about you. This is about what someone needs to hear through you. And that applies to you from being a brand new consultant, reading your flip chart on Zoom to someone and sharing Mary Kay's story. From the very beginning, we represent Mary Kay's mission and her opportunity. And you guys, that helps keep me on the straight and narrow. During the pandemic, it's like, okay, I was probably the least technologically advanced, U.S. national. No one would have said, call Dawn Otten-Sweeney if you need help with technology. I mean, I did not even know what Zoom was. I had a cell phone. I still had a hard drive computer. I didn't even have a laptop. And so when we sheltered in place, what I did find is like, okay, like I got to figure this out. I went into Canada and figured that out. I had directors in Mexico. My husband's job took us to Douglas, Arizona, the first 2 years of my business, figured that out. St. Simon's Island with no directors, figured that out. So I can do this because you know what? Mary Kay figured it out. You guys, in the early 60s, when she started this company, Like, I don't know if you know much about, what was going on in the United States, but women were making like less than 50 cents on a dollar a man made. Mary Kay had territories taken away because a man had to support his family. Women, I learned in Jennifer Cook's book, couldn't drive outside their city limits at night without a permission from their husband. They could not get loans. They couldn't get loans. Mary Kay didn't serve alcohol because she knew if the husbands did allow them to drive outside the city limits, that if there wasn't alcohol involved, they'd be more likely to let their wives come. And so you couldn't get a loan on your own as a woman. You had to have your husband sign on it. Like, the Vietnam War was going on. There was racial unrest. There was riots and protest. Like, it was not a settled, convenient time for her to start her business. She was a pioneer. She was saying, you don't have to burn your bra to be the best woman you can be and fight, what's going on here. Let's just look at how God made women and let's let them become the best version of themselves, his version of it, and see what happens. She believed in that. You guys, you have pioneering roots. In there, you have a pioneer in you, even if you don't believe it, because otherwise you wouldn't have been drawn to this company. People that want to clock in and clock out and just like you were saying, Janice, with your sister, you can perform at a high level, and God knew I'd be able to perform at a high level and not grow. And that is not okay.
So, Dawn, don't you feel it's interesting when you're talking about Mary Kay? First of all, I don't know. I've always said the prouder you are to be associated with Mary Kay, the more successful you will be. And I'm like you. I wasn't always proud of where I was in my Mary Kay, but what would help me recruit or share the opportunity was I believed in the company. And it was always the women. It was Mary Kay Ash. And I wanted women to learn about her and to be exposed to her and to see the possibilities. And one of my things, I think in Canada right now, or in the US, I think we might be up to 80 cents a dollar. But what I thought, I always like sharing this story is, a few years ago when the women did the march on Washington, and my sister flew in from the US, and, we had one in Toronto, and I applaud all those women for standing up for their rights in Yahoo. And then I thought, Mary Kay, she probably would have marched, but instead of marching, she started a company.
Amen.
And I think that when you're sharing, you talk about Jennifer Cook's book, and that's what we had to draw before you got on. And every Zoom, that is our gift. And I think it's absolutely
Awesome.
gift that we can give to consultants and to directors is when you read that book, I think so many consultants want to know the how-to. And I think what I'm hearing from you and part of our journey is, first of all, who do we want to be? And we wanted that peace and that joy. We didn't, and the Cadillacs and the trips and all of that, it was because those women, the joy and the peace and the faith and the balance in their lives. And then the other thing too is, so the why. And I think I loved what you were sharing about your son, that you were willing to fly him to do whatever you could because Mary Kay gave you that opportunity. And I think for our consultants and directors on here, when you can really get so excited, and when you were sharing about the company, I mean, I know all of that, but I think we get complacent with how incredible this company is and how incredible the opportunity is, and that just to all go out. And if we don't send you Jennifer Cook's, pass it on as a gift, please go out and order it and order 2 of them and pay it forward and all of that. So Dawn, that's what I'm loving about all of this is that who do we want to become? And when you know the who and when you know the why, the how will be there. And the how is actually a lot simpler than what you think it would be. So Dawn, do you have any words of wisdom? I mean, you've shared so much already, but what else would you like to share with this group?
Well, when you're talking about the how-to, people get so caught up in the how-to. And we did not, I got my starter kit. Debbie Moore didn't do a party for me. She told me to go find 2 consultants to watch their parties and then to book 8 to hold 5.
Yeah.
And 5 parties was 25 to 30 faces because a party was 5 to 6 people. When we in the States, and I don't know where you guys are at with your starter kits and with COVID now with the $30 e-start and stuff like that, but when in the States, when a kit went to 4 mirrors and trays to keep it under $100, which I understand, people started to equate a party with 3 or 4 people. Well, then a Power Start was 30 faces. And you guys, that's not Mary Kay math. Mary Kay math was book 8 to hold 5. And in fact, in Jennifer Cook's book, she shares that when people would ask Mary Kay, like, what do you think about, my future in Mary Kay? And she'd say, how many parties a week are you doing? And she said, Jennifer said, if they said less than 5, Mary Kay would ask them to consider another career. You guys, we've gotten so soft. I know in the United States, people act like 30 faces in a month is a big fat deal. 5 parties, especially with this virtual piece, you can do 5 parties on Facebook, on Zoom, and not have to travel, not have to fly. You guys know you live in a big country with people spread apart. I used to get on airplanes in the United States every single week when I moved from Georgia back to Michigan. I go, now I can come up to my Zoom room and get those 25 faces in, but no one gave me a script for everything. I went out there, tried something. If it didn't work, you went back out there and you did it again. So you gain confidence that way. People are trying to look at everyone's stuff, way more ideas than you ever needed are out there, and not do it enough. Do yourself a favor, book 8 to hold 5. I don't care if it's virtual or in person. And that means 25 to 30 faces for a perfect start. And then book 8 to hold 5 more. I have a YouTube channel under my name. So I think my name's right there, Dawn Otten-Sweeney. I think in YouTube, there's no hyphens. I have what's called the boot camp series. It's audio training. My daughter, when she started her business, that's how she started. I didn't tell her those things. That's Book Coach Sell Recruit, how I was taught by Mary Kay and Daylene and Debbie Moore. So you can listen to that. For directors, I have a master series that I just did. You can listen to that. I have a website, DawnOttensweeney.com. All my stuff there. Director login is, I think it's legacy is a password. Nothing else is password protected. But you guys, all the how-to is there. But what I found, if you want it bad enough, you'll figure out how to. If there is worth it, you'll figure out how to. And that's where keeping yourself steeped in what this is all about, because otherwise you get distracted. You get distracted by what other people are doing. You get distracted about the politics in a country or in a company. You guys, don't get distracted. This is a time period. We need you to not be distracted and go back to good old fashioned Mary Kay. When Mary Kay Ash, she would tell us if you wanted to quit, she'd say, do a 10-party week. If your husband was being irritating, do a 10-party week. If your teenagers were going rogue, do a 10-party week. And at the end of those 10-party weeks, you know what? You were sold out on this opportunity. You were sold out on impacting women through this product, and you had new recruits, and you had a stack of cash. And honestly, with inflation, again, don't know exactly where that's at in your country, but gas is getting really expensive in food in our country. There's a lot of people. There's more women that need Mary Kay right now in the United States of America than in my 35 years.
So Dawn, I love what you're sharing. When I joined, which was 41 years ago, starting my 40, is that it wasn't called the perfect start, but as part of your training, you had to book 8 parties to hold 5 in your first 2 weeks. And I did it because that was the only training there was. And when I did my first party, I had been facialed by Ann Newberry, but really it was the fastest facial ever. She just wanted me to sign up and, join. But I know, and Mary Kay, I can remember saying it is the cornerstone of your business. And that will build everything. And, there's a poem out there, everything I need to learn, I needed to learn in kindergarten. Well, Mary Kay was so smart. And all those systems that she put in place, I'm in awe that 50 something years later, they're so relevant. But I think that everything that you need to learn to be successful in Mary Kay, you learn by doing your perfect start. You overcome objections. When cancellations happen, you rebook, you make it happen. And I think that if I hadn't done my perfect start, we would not be on this Zoom today because I would not have stayed with Mary Kay. So really, really going back, and Mike and I wrote Delivering Products the other day, and but it was interesting. 3 people that I delivered to were from that perfect start 30 something years ago, and they've become dear friends, and to do all of that. So it's really, I think that, and don't you agree, all Mary Kay talks about, one of her big things was, I remember being on stage and saying garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
And so to focus on that. Well, we have a couple more minutes. So what else would you love to share?
I do want to share, I'm big on resourcing people. And I mean, Mary Kay taught us, and one of the things that Debbie Moore taught me that she had learned from Mary Kay is that you're going to become like the 5 people you spend the most time with and the 5 books that you've most recently read. And that's a scary thought to me because when I started Mary Kay, I had most recently read Cosmopolitan Magazine and Danielle Steele novels. And still, that's who my mom is, you guys. And I love my mom and taking care of my aging parents right now in this season. But you guys, like, God had different plans. And my daughter is a totally different person because of who I have turned into and am turning into. And a majority of that's reading. Because if you don't change how you think, you make the same choices. You make the same choices, you have the same habits, you create the same life you've always had. So, Mary Kay always told us too, she was politically incorrect. Read the Bible. That was the number one thing she recommended. And then I'd recommend her autobiographies, The Pass It On. There's another great book that I've recently read and been studying. It's called, it has a big X on it. It's by John Bevere, Bevere. Bevere. It's called Multiplying Your God-Given Potential. And it has questions after it. It's so Mary Kay. I picked it up because I saw him being interviewed. I'm like, ooh, I want to get that. And I get into the 4th chapter. The whole book's about Matthew, the 25:14 through 30. I'm like, all right, God, what are we doing here? So I've used it for retreats and book clubs for the last year and a half. So check that out because I think that's so timely, so Mary Kay. But also when Janice was saying, when I started, I had never seen God combine with business. Like it was always very separated. And so it didn't make me uncomfortable. I was very curious I liked the ease that the women could jump from their spiritual self to their professional self. Like to me, I like that because I felt like it was always so awkward that this is how I'm supposed to act and talk and dress on Sunday. But then Monday through Friday in my professional job, I have different rules. And then in recreation, I have different rules. And I don't know, again, I don't work well with that. I like it all who I am right now is who I'll be at a wedding tonight for my next door neighbor who, when I drove up and she saw a pink Cadillac 27 years ago in Michigan, because this business allowed my husband to retire from a 10-year career as a federal agent. Her daughter was 9. She gets married. She got to quit her job as a nurse because of Mary Kay to raise her daughter, who I'll go to the wedding. I will be the same person at the wedding tonight as I am with you right now, as I'll be at, church tomorrow and yoga tomorrow afternoon. I love that. Mary Kay wanted us to have integrity, and that's an integrated life. That's the base of integrity. And so the Bible helped me, but I needed another tool because I'd read it and go, I don't understand this. And so the Experiencing God Workbook by Henry Blackaby, Blackaby, Henry Blackaby. He actually wrote it in Canada. He lived in Canada. He has kids still in Canada. But the Experiencing God Workbook, Kathy Halou gave one to Heather Carlson, who gave it to me. And that has been a railroad track for me to understand when people go, well, God said this, and I know I was supposed to do this. I had no idea what they were talking about. I'm like, I don't know. Is he sitting with them for coffee? What does that even mean? That's what taught me. And I'm actually going back through that workbook. I've probably in the last 27 years have done it at least 20 times. You can do it on your own.
John, don't you find, Mary Kay, same thing in her wisdom is that the older I get, the more that I learn, the more that I'm exposed to, I really come back to Mary Kay because everything that she taught, it really does come from the Bible and all the self-help books and the psychology. It's as a man thinketh, and what you plant is what you will sprout. I was smiling because I am so big on reading. That is, and podcasts right now are my favorite because I can walk and listen. And again, I don't know whether the older I get, I don't have quite the concentration reading that I used to have, but when I'm out there walking with the dog and listening to podcasts. But I remember years ago, I was at a conference with a really good buddy, leadership with a really good buddy of mine. And she was, wanted to become a national and was really, really stalled. And I don't know, I just kind of made a comment and I said, I can always tell when someone in Mary Kay is ready to take off by what they're reading. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, if they're reading Daniel Steele, They just want to read about somebody living a great life. If they're reading a book, an inspirational book, and she looked at me and had this wretched look on her face and dug under the bedside table. And at leadership, she had brought a Daniel Steele book. This, this is amazing. She left there, went to the airport and bought Stephen Covey's book, 7 Steps to Highly Effective People. And she debuted as a national that year. And the interesting thing is, she didn't read the whole book. She changed one thing. And I think the one thing she changed was she started getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So but it was just that power of learning and growing and things like that. Now, John, just tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay, so when I started, I was single, got married the year after I started my Mary Kay business. My husband's job took us to Arizona and Georgia for the first 10 years. My son is now 31 and my daughter's 29. You'll see on my Facebook fan page, her name's Otten-Sweeney. She started her business when she was young. People would ask her, are you gonna be Mary Kay like your mom? And she'd roll her eyes and say no. I'm like, you can say no, but do we have to roll the eyes? Like, could we just stop that? And so, but when she went to college, her second year, her and my son weren't sharing their car very well on the other side of the state. And I clearly told him, that's a luxury. It's an old car, but it's coming home if I have to be the car referee. And so she called one day and said, I want to earn a car in Mary Kay. And so at 19, I'm like, okay, let's go. Book 8 to hole 5. Here's your boot camp CDs to listen to as you drive back and forth. You're going to need, if you're working with only college students, a lot of people. Earned a car, became a director in 5 months, fell in love with the business, went to leadership. And that was 9 years ago. She's 29. It was almost 10 years ago. She's now married. She picked up her 3rd Cadillac last couple weeks ago. So we've had so much fun working together. I've loved it. Her husband, because of her Mary Kay business, she could buy their first house with her Mary Kay sales of the product. He played hockey in college, and then professionally, a year played in Switzerland. So she got to, go move around with him and experience a lot of fun life, but also allow him to play and use his gifts and talents, because hockey at low levels doesn't pay you millions of dollars. So it's fun to see how Mary Kay, my daughter is not a people pleaser at all. Both my kids, they're using their gifts and talents. And my son's an electronic music producer, was just at a show in Denver, moved to Denver a little while ago. And I think there was probably 25,000 people there listening to him. No musical talent in our family at all. But it's fun to see how when you are willing to go as God goes and not worry about what anyone else thinks, like, you don't know who you're forging the way for. I really believe, and I don't want to cry because I don't want my mascara to be running down my face before I have to leave for this wedding, but I thought this was about me, about the trips and the rings and the income and what it could do for my husband. This business has been for what God needed my kids to know, for who they need to be in this world and in his kingdom, and my grandkids that we don't even have yet. We just have grand dogs yet. So I encourage you guys to go as God is calling you. Be courageous. We need courageous women. Mary Kay was courageous. She was a matriarch. Go as God guides. Go, really run this out. We need you in Mary Kay, this baton passing time. We need you to be sharing this product and opportunity really with, no concern for, what people are going to say, to find the women who say yes. It's a really important time for all of us to step up to the plate.
And John, I really feel, and I know that from the time I met you, I felt God's hand on our friendship, and I've been very blessed. Dawn and I just have this friendship that we may not talk for a year or 18 months. And all of a sudden, God will put in my heart to connect with her, and I'll get an email back or a text right back. And oh my, I was just thinking about you. But in all of that, I do feel God's hand on our Legacy Leaders series. And I think that all the consultants and directors that not only are on today, but are going to watch the recording, whether it's on your YouTube, and we will send out to everyone, that I really encourage you to just trust and take a leap of faith that God has great plans for you and for you to prosper and for you. And that one thing that I've written down here in really, really big letters is, this is not about you. I think if that's everyone's takeaway, because for all of us, if we think about how many people, women's lives, and my theme is let your light shine, don't hide it under a bushel. And, how many women's lives that we can touch by complimenting them and offering them the opportunity and sharing it, and how we stop by thinking about what it is. Anyway, Dawn, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and all of our consultants. And we're going to end with, it's one of my favorite poems. And I think it could have been written for Mary Kay, but it also could have been written for you and all of our amazing consultants and directors who are on here. And I know you've got a busy day with a wedding and you look beautiful. So thank you. Let's just all, thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing. So the poem is A Strong Woman versus a Woman of Strength. A strong woman works out every day to keep her body in shape, but a woman of strength builds relationships to keep her soul in shape. A strong woman isn't afraid of anything, but a woman of strength shows courage in the midst of her fear. A strong woman won't let anyone get the best of her, but a woman of strength gives the best of her to everyone. A strong woman makes mistakes and avoids the same in the future, but a woman of strength realizes life's mistakes can also be unexpected blessings and capitalizes on them. A strong woman wears a look of confidence on her face, but a woman of strength wears grace. And Dawn, you're absolutely ooze grace. I can just feel it coming out. God's grace. A strong woman has faith that she is strong enough for the journey, but a woman of strength has faith that it is in the journey that she will become strong. So Dawn, you have blessed our journey today, and I encourage our consultants and our directors to pay it forward, pass it on, pay it forward. Have a very blessed weekend. And Dawn, thank you. Thank you from a very grateful heart. So yay.
Thank you for asking me. Okay, guys, it's game time. It's
Bye,
game
guys.
time. Final four and Mary Kay.
Bye, Dawn. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Go ahead.
Hi.
Hey, Elena, you won our prize.
Thank you. He says hi. He wanted to say hi.
Hi, hi, hi.
Bye.
Okay.